Today in this lecture we are going to see which European countries came to India, means which Europeans came to India and how they settled in India and what they did for their ruling rights. Okay, so first one to came were the Portuguese. So Portuguese came during the rule of Samudrik in Calicut. So your today's homework is you have to find where is Calicut and you have to comment on the video. Okay. After that, coming to Calicut, Portuguese established a trading center at Cochin, Goa and Diu Daman. Okay, and apart from the trade, they also used their naval power to rule over the sea. We know that Portuguese came from the sea route, so they have a powerful naval force with them, and thus they were able to establish a rule over the sea. Okay, but as you see, India and other Asian countries were much more powerful on land. We know that Indians have brave soldiers and brave fighters, and even the other Asian countries had, but the India and other Asian countries lacked in the naval power, and that gained the advantage for the Portuguese because Portuguese has the naval power and they have that technology with them. So even though the Portuguese soldiers were very less in number, they were just only handful, they still maintained their power over the sea. They were able to rule the sea, and because of their naval force was much stronger than those of India and Asian countries. Okay, and why so they were able to establish a rule over the sea? Because their naval power was more powerful as compared to India and the other Asian countries. Okay, so later on Portuguese established their rule over Goa, and using piracy and loot at the sea, they gained prominent position into the Indian Sea. So they were into the work of piracy and loot. Okay, so whatever the cargo used to pass through the sea, they used to like rob it, and they used to gain the prominent position in the Indian Sea. Now you have to do the other work, that is you have to tell me what is unique about Indian Sea. Okay. So in 1507 AD, the Portuguese appointed Almeida as the first governor in India. So the first Portuguese governor in India was Almeida, and after that Afonso Albuquerque was appointed as the governor. And Afonso Albuquerque won the Goa. He won the Goa, and it made the capital of the Portuguese state in India in 1510 AD. Okay. So Albuquerque won the Goa and made it as a capital of Portuguese state in India in 1510 AD. And after that, Portuguese ruled Indian sea coast for almost 100 years. So the sea coast of India was ruled by Portuguese for almost 100 years after they made Goa as their capital in India. Okay. After Portuguese came the Dutch. So Dutch people were referred to as people from Holland, and Holland is generally used for Netherlands. So people from Netherlands or the Netherlands is called the Holland. Okay. So Holland literally means the land of woods. Holland entered into the world trade in the later half of 16th century. So in the later half of 16th century, that is after 1550s. Okay. And what were the criteria for Dutch were they wanted to break the Portuguese commerce and business in India. So they form a group of all the small business companies in Holland, and they form a big company or a new company named Dutch East India Company in 1602 AD. Okay. Then the Dutch wished to establish their monopoly over the prosperous spice centers of Java and Sumatra regions of Indonesia. We know that Java and Sumatra comes under Indonesia, so they wanted to have their monopoly over their prosperous spice centers. And what do you mean by monopoly? It means a form of trade structure where only one seller is present. Okay, and there are no other seller to offer the goods. So Dutch wanted to have the monopoly over the prosperous spice center of Java and Sumatra of Indonesia region, and thus they pushed the Portuguese out of that region. And after that, they also established their business centers at Surat, Bharuch, Khambat and Ahmedabad in Gujarat, Cochin in Kerala, Nagapattinam in Madras, Masulipatam in Andhra, Chinsura in Bengal, Patna in Bihar, Agra in Uttar Pradesh. Okay. After establishing all those centers in India, they even won Sri Lanka from Portuguese in 1658 AD. And this gave the major setback to the Portuguese rule. So Dutch centers that were established in India, as well as they won the Sri Lanka from Portuguese in 1658 AD. Then the Portuguese were literally hindered, and their business were set back because of the Dutch rule. Then came the Britishers. So Britishers understood the importance of business with India while they saw Portuguese and Dutch immense profit from the Indian trade. So the Britishers also wanted to trade with India. So some traders from the England came together to form an organization, and they named their organization as Merchant Adventurers. So some of the traders formed a group and named it as Merchants Traders to conduct the trade with India. Okay. And this organization, that is Merchant Adventurers, later on came to be known as British East India Company. So what happened was, the British Queen Elizabeth gave this organization, that is British East India Company, monopoly on the trade of India and the other eastern countries through the Royal Charter Act of 31st December 1600. So what does it mean is, the Queen Elizabeth gave the rights to the company to conduct the trade, that is monopoly trade with the Indian and the eastern countries. So what happened was, no other British companies were allowed to trade with India and other eastern countries. Okay. Sooner, East India Company established their factory in Surat. So we know that the first East India Company factory was established in Surat. Then Captain Hawkins, he went to the Mughal Emperor Jahangir and asked for the permission for the factory. So after asking for the permission, Jahangir granted them the permission through royal order in 1612-1613 AD. And after this royal order, East India Company were able to trade with the Mughal Empire. And after that, the company sent their envoy, that is Thomas Raw, to the Mughal Emperor in 1615 AD. And because of the Raw, the company got the permission of trading in all parts of the Mughal Empire, and also they were able to set up their factories in all the Mughal Empire. Okay. So they were allowed to do so because of the efforts of the Thomas Raw. Then the next step that Britishers took was, the British Emperor Charles II, he married the Portuguese princess. So what happened was, during the marriage, the Portuguese gave away the island of Bombay as dowry. Dowry means Dahej. So the Portuguese gave away the Bombay island to the Britishers, that is British Emperor. And thus the British Emperor gave that island to the company, and that island was now under the control of the company. So the Mumbai was under the control of the company. And in this way, apart from Goa, Diu and Daman, Portuguese held no other position in India. So they were left with two, that is Goa, Diu and Daman. So Portuguese just have these two places under them in India. Then what happened was, the Britishers wanted to have a trade in Indonesia. So they refuted the Dutch over there, and there was a struggle between the Britishers and the Dutch companies for this price trade in Indonesia. And this war and this struggle is known as Anglo-Dutch War, and that continued from 1654 AD to 1667 AD. So the war broke out in 1654 AD and it ended in 1667 AD with a treaty. And what was there in the treaty? That the treaty said that the Britishers were not to do any trade with Indonesia, and the Dutch companies in India was not to trade in those areas where English had their factories. So in 11th standard, you know that how vast the Mughal Empire was. So like stopping the Dutch to not to trade in India in those areas where Britishers had the factory. So we know that in almost every part of the Mughal Empire, they established a factory one by one. So Dutch were barred from trading in India, and so the Britishers were also barred to trade in Indonesia because of the treaty signed after the Anglo-Dutch War. So in this way, the English became the most powerful European power in India, and thus the Britishers became the most powerful European power in India. Okay. Then came the French. Then came the French. So French East India Company was established in 1664 AD in Paris, France. So French East India Company in 1664 AD was established in Paris in France. Okay. Do not confuse it as it is mentioned as French East India Company, so the company would be established in India. No, it is. It's not that. It was established in Paris, France. But they established their control on the east coast of India at Chandranagar and Pondicherry. So they established the control at the two places, that is Chandranagar, that is near Calcutta, and the Pondicherry, which is Union Territory in India. Okay. And they also had control over the Mauritius and certain islands of East India. So you have to tell me, where is Mauritius? Okay. So what would happen when French entered into the scenario of Indian trade? We know that Britishers put away the Portuguese and the Dutch from the Indian trade scenario, so also they would want French to go out. And thus what happened was the war broke out between French and Britain in 1742 AD. And thus a struggle began between the British East India Company and the French East India Company. So what happened at that time was the French Governor General in India, that is Dupleix, was the very powerful. What he did was he took the different local rulers of India with him and made the plan to remove the Britishers or the English from India. So French East India Company was successful in Hyderabad also, and they established their center over there. And they also established their rule over Rajmundry, Mustafanagar, Ellore and Chikakol. These all areas come under the Andhra Pradesh, current Andhra Pradesh, okay. And as a result, what happened? The Britishers became cautious. So they were dealing cautiously with the French. But in 1750 AD, the war broke out between them regarding the internal and political issues of India. So Britishers also wanted to have their political footprint. The French also wanted to have their. They wanted to have their trade. Means both of them wanted to have internal or the political footprint with India. So because of that issues, the war broke out in 1750 AD. And under the leadership of Clive, British East India Company defeated French in Trichupalli. Okay. And finally they reached an agreement in 1754 AD and the Dupleix was called from India. So what happened was they fought and they finally made an agreement in 1754 AD, and under that agreement Dupleix was recalled from India and he went to France. Okay. But then once again the war broke out in Karnataka, and that is known as Karnataka War in 1756 AD, and by 1760 AD, English was successful in removing French outside of Indian politics. So, after 1760, the Britishers were able to remove French from the Indian politics, and then a treaty, that is Paris Agreement, was signed in 1764 AD. And according to that agreement, French handed all over their factories to Britain, that is Britishers, and accepted the condition that they would not indulge in any political activity. So what did the agreement do was, according to that agreement, French gave away all their factories to the Britishers, and also they agreed that they will not indulge in any political activity. And thus once again the Britishers were the most powerful European power in India. Okay. So now let's see the hold of British power in India. So we know that East India Company established their factories in different part of India and started their activities. And also they strengthened their position in south, and they established the factory in Masulipattnam and started their expansion. And also with the permission of the local ruler, they built a fort that is in present Chennai, and that fort came to be known as Fort St. George in 1639 AD. Then we know that Emperor Charles gave the Mumbai island to the East India Company, and so they shifted their center from Surat to Mumbai. Okay. So after getting the Mumbai island, the British East India Company shifted their center from Surat to the Mumbai. Then they got the permission to trade in Orissa, in 1633 AD and in Bengal in 1651 AD. And what was the result was they established the factories in Patna, Balasore and Dhaka. And now when they established a factory, they also saw that there is unstable political situation in India during those times. So what they did was they tried to took the political power in their hands. So they attacked the Hooghly and launched a war against the Mughal emperor. But during those times, Aurangzeb was the Mughal emperor and he was the very powerful at those times. And we know that in 11th standard we studied Aurangzeb was the last powerful ruler of the Mughal. Okay. So when the Britishers broke out the war against the Mughal, the Aurangzeb crushed their attacks and they defeated the English. And as a result, they took all the factories at Surat, Masulipatam and Vishakhapatnam into their hands. So Britishers lost their factories of Surat, Masulipatam and Vishakhapatnam. And this led to the fall at the feet of the Mughal emperor of the Britishers. So this war made the Britishers to fall at the feet of the Mughal emperor, and thus the Mughal emperor pardoned them and he allowed them to trade once again in their empire. So the Britishers started their trade with the veneer of psychopathy and humility. What does it means is veneer is veneer means the coating, and they were coated in the psychopathy and humility. Psychopathy means we surrender something. So they surrendered their everything to the Mughal emperor because of the war. So they were coated in the surrenderness and the humility, and thus with this they started their trading activities once again. But sooner the Mughal realized that the pardoning of the Britishers was the wrong decision for them. So the British East India Company got the zamindari of Sutnati, Kalighat and Govindpur villages in 1698 AD. And also they built a fort around the villages which came to be known as Fort Williams, and it is present today in Kolkata. Okay. Then Farooq Shiar gave them the special permission by 1651 AD, and that came to be valid for Gujarat and South India too. So the Britishers, the East India Company made a huge profit, that is windfall profit, which means a huge profit during those times. So it is mentioned, the fact is given over here, that is in 1708 AD, company used to send back 5 lakh pounds, and which increased to 17 lakh 95,000 pounds by 1740 AD. So this were the effect, that this how much the profit they made because of their strategies. But with the weakening of the Mughal Empire, the British again got the opportunity to have expansion in India. And by this time, company had already defeated the Portuguese and Dutch, we saw earlier in this lecture. And also at that time, their only competitor were the French. But by 1763, after the Karnataka war, they even kept aside the French and took the stronghold in the India, and thus they were the most powerful European power in India. Okay.